Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Pause the video right now to check out my social media, my radio show, and thatdrummerguy.com. And most of all, enjoy the following presentation.
Hey Josh, it's Michael Sweet again. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good. Sorry about that, man.
Oh, not a problem. It actually worked out better for me as I'm in my apartment right now, and they started mowing the grass right outside my window just after you called. So now it'll actually be clear. So.
Well, there you go. Good. Okay, perfect.
Oh, well, awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to be able to do this. Being a longtime fan of what you've done over your amazing career, it's awesome to be able to talk about the brand new album from your amazing project, Sweet and Lynch, Unified, which is coming out November 10th through Frontiers Music.
Yes.
So what went into the writing process for the new album?
Well, it was similar to the first. A little different, but similar in the sense that George sent me music ideas. I'll start with the first album. He sent me music ideas about a minute to a minute and a half long. An intro, verse, chorus, and then it would just shut off. Da, 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 and then I'd have to kind of figure out where to go from there and what we needed in terms of a bridge or a solo section or what have you. And I did that. I had a little bit more work cut out for me on the first album. And then I wrote the lyrics and the melodies. This time around, George sent me the music, and it was much more complete, if not almost complete, on all songs. So I would get 3.5 to 4.5 or 5 minute long songs, just music. And then I would just, fine tune those and then write the lyrics and the melodies, very similar to the first album. And then go in and map it out and produce the album. George tracked all his stuff out in L.A. with Chris Collier, his engineer, who's great, by the way. And I tracked everything out here with Danny Bernini, my engineer, at Spirit House. Tracked the drums with Brian and James, bass player, here with me in the room. And the only thing that wasn't with us and we weren't with was George. But, hey, we're going to keep working on that. We're going to hope for in the future to be able to do that. I'm sure it'll happen.
Well, it's awesome to see that even though you guys weren't able to get together and be in the same studio for the writing process and everything, it really feels like that you guys were sitting right next to each other writing and recording these songs because they feel so natural from start to finish.
It is really bizarre how that worked out because it did. It did work out. Usually it doesn't. I can hear most of the time the albums where, as they say, that were phoned in, where everyone was in different locations and they did their tracks and then sent the files via Dropbox or whatever. I can usually hear that because there's a certain energy that's missing. When you're having fun in the studio, I always say that's translated over to the recording itself. It really is. And, if you're not in the same room, you're not going to have that. You're going to be missing that. But I think because most of the band was in the same room, Brian, James, and myself, and then George's guitars were sent to us, and we went back and forth on that. I think it worked. Again, it's not the way I prefer to do things, but that being said, it works for us, and it did work for the first album and this album. And I'm really thankful for that because if it doesn't work and you're lacking that energy and that fun spirit, it's going to hurt the album. And the fans are going to hear that.
Well, I can definitely say from my fan perspective that it feels like with it being a similar situation to last time, that everything did feel a lot more natural this time around. I mean, everything feels a lot more livelier and more up-tempo and everything that's going on with that. And it feels like the natural feel of the band feels a lot tighter this time around as well, even though it was done in separate locations.
Well, it's funny you say that because I agree. I really do. And this album to me sounds a little bit more focused. It's a little bit more raw and in your face. The first album was a little more slick, had a little bit more production and effects and things going on, and more tracks too. This album doesn't have as many tracks. It's a little bit more scaled down and bare bones, but I think it works. I really do. And we experimented a little bit more, like the song Walk. George sent me that, and I'm like, wow, this is cool. I don't know what to do with it, but it's really cool. And it worked, man. And it's like if you were to merge Aerosmith and Queen and Stryper and Dokken together, you're going to get Walk. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. I mean, I just had the album for roughly about 24 hours now, but I've been able to digest it with a few listens, and I really love the diversity that's going on with it. I mean, when you got such a banger like Promised Land opening up the album, you got such an amazing song like the title track, and you end it with something like Live to Die. I mean, it covers the gamut of so much that you guys have been a part of in the past, but it feels so fresh and so good.
Well, dude, thank you. That means the world to hear you say that. And that's all you can hope and pray for when you make an album, that people are going to connect with it and they're going to get it. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes the band makes an album, they feel the best album of their career, and the fans just don't get it. That's happened with us. We made a couple albums that we were really excited about, and they got released, and they didn't do so well. And I think it's probably happened with any band. But it's really nice to hear and see the band be so excited about an album, and then the fans and the critics seem to be equally as excited about that very same album as well. And so far, that's the result with this album. I'm hearing a lot of good things, and I think it's going to be a winner, man. I do. I mean, granted, we're limited because of the times that we live in. Rock isn't at the top of the charts. It's a struggle. It's a battle. It's a fight for bands from our era, and for us to go out there and get it out to the masses and do it the right way. It's very tough. But, man, we're still trying. We still love what we do. Hopefully that shows.
Yeah, and to me, that's what's most important. I mean, when a band goes out and does, say, their most ambitious album, if it's like something that's like almost a complete departure for the band, as long as it's authentic, there's something that I can really appreciate about that. I mean, I would rather have that than feeling like, okay, then we have to make an album like this because it's what the fans want. I mean, when you start doing that, then the quality of the music starts to deteriorate because the band's just not into it the way that they used to be. And with something like this, I can definitely hear that, it's just like, even though the different locations and everything, I could tell everyone in the band wanted to be a part of this. They wanted to write the best quality music that you could, and it definitely came out that way.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, we were all, our hearts and our souls and, our bodies to the core were completely into this album. We put everything we had into this album and gave our all. And we all wanted it to be the best. And there's no doubt, you're absolutely right on the money with that. It's just, again, it's hit or miss. Especially when you start experimenting, when you start trying different things, it's like, you got to, as an artist, do that and have the freedom to do that. And that's what makes some of the best bands in history so good, because they took the risk. And they experimented, and they did something really unique. And we tried a little bit of that on this album. Like I said, with songs like Walk, there's a song called Afterlife. For typical, what people expect to hear from George and Michael, collectively or individually, that ain't it, So those are the songs that people are going to listen to and go, oh, wow, okay, this is different, for them. And it really is. And we enjoy doing that. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that can always inspire creativity. I mean, whether it's a part of this project or any of the other projects that you guys are a part of, I mean, when you do go out and experiment and try different ideas, I mean, if it can lead to something that leads to a great song or a great song down the road in a different project, it's always for a greater good.
Absolutely. And especially if it's good, I mean, that's the thing is, if you're experimenting and you go, far beyond what anyone can relate to, and they don't get it, what's the point of that, and it bombs and your fans hate it. That's happened with everybody. Movies, albums, you got to be careful of that. You always want to give people something that they can cling to and grasp and relate to and say, wow, and then if you can make it different and experiment and stretch out a little bit, that makes it even better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't want that to ever happen where it's like a fan goes and they talk about their favorite songs off an album, and then you realize that, oh, those are actually on a few different albums. They're not on the same one. I mean, you want to be able to have like those writing processes where it's like each album stands out on its own and you can tell them apart, but it has that same quality of sound to it.
Exactly. Absolutely. And my goal is, as a writer, whenever I'm writing right now, for the Striper album, and I've just been completely consumed with that for the past 5 days. And as I'm writing the songs, not just thinking about the fans, but what moves me. When I hear something that I'm playing, a riff, and I put a drum groove to it, I create a drum groove and then I play through it a little bit. Is the hair on my arm standing on end? And if it's not, then I have to question that. And I have to think, okay, well, is it good enough? Is this really great? And sometimes I come to the conclusion that it's not so great. That happens to me a lot, where I'm working on a song and I'm excited about it. And then about an hour later, I'm canning it. And I'm just kind of putting it on a shelf saying, not so great. And then the next thing I come up with is 10 times or 20 times better and much more exciting and much more cool. And, so that happens a lot. But yeah, man, it's got to be something that just touches people, that moves people, whether it's the music or the lyric or both. You want people to hear it and go, wow, man, that's really cool. And that's kind of the whole point. You want to move people.
Absolutely. And with that in mind, I mean, when you are into the songwriting mode, I mean, whether you're working on lyrics, whether you're working on drum parts, song arrangement, when you also get into the production side, are you able to separate yourself from what you're playing and the production, as in like finding out what's going to be best for the song production-wise?
Absolutely. I mean, I go in, I'm the kind of guy, and I think my personality, and I joke about being OCD and ADHD and whatever other D you can find. And it's like, I think because I'm that way, I focus on everything. Now, one would think that I can't focus on anything because I'm ADHD, blah, blah, blah. But I guess what it is the H is for hyper focus. And I really do hyper focus on stuff. And especially like if I'm working on an album, my family, it kind of suffers because of that, because I'm so involved in that album for 2 or 3 months that nothing else is on the radar. And, that's a good thing and it's a bad thing. But when I go in to produce an album, I listen to everything. I focus on the drums every bit as much as I focus on the lead vocals or the guitars or the bass or the keys. I hear everything in my head, and I'll go in, I'll say, okay, hey, Rob, can you try this? And of course I want him to add his flavor and do his thing and bring what he brings to the table. But, I'll say, hey, can you try this groove right here? Because the guitars go right with that, and he's like, oh yeah, okay, cool, got that. And then I'll say to Oz, do this melody. He'll do it. It's like, yeah, dude, that's killer. And I'm hearing all this different stuff in my head. It's just the way my brain works. And sometimes it can actually be a little nerve-wracking and drive me crazy. It's all over the map, man. And I can't sleep because when I'm making an album, I don't get much sleep at all. We sleep at the studio when we're tracking there. We eat, sleep, and record. And we'll work from noon to 10 or 11 at night, and then go have a glass of wine and talk for an hour or so, and then go to bed. And when I go to bed at midnight or 1 a.m., I toss and turn in bed for probably 2 or 3 hours, just thinking about the song and parts. And I'll get up out of bed and grab my phone and go, and hum these silly ideas into my phone for the next day. So it's just a nonstop. And I guess that's how any creative person is. It's a nonstop thing. But I do wish my brain would just stop for a moment. It'd be nice.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, when you have that kind of creative mind and when you have like this perfect vision going on in your mind, you want to be able to translate that the best that you can. And of course, like you said, making sure everyone adds their flavors into the songs and everything. But with that said, when or how do you approach it to know when a song is good enough to be able to be completely finished?
Oh gosh, see that's the thing with me, because we'll go and mix and master, and I'll listen to the album a few times afterwards, and then I'll say to myself, dang, if we only had a little more time and more money, I'd go in and do that and change that and take that away. I'm always thinking that. I'm never 100% happy with the song. I've been close. I've been very close. The song that came the closest was probably Yahweh in recent times. I listen to that song. I'm not really dissecting it and hearing it as we need to fix this, this, and that. I just enjoy it. I think it's cool. It turned out really good. But that's few and far between. I'm usually doing that with almost every song.
Yeah, and I can absolutely understand that as well. I mean, whether it's like you feel like a guitar bend could be different, or you hear a rim click on a tom or something like that, or just like a phrasing, whatever the case is. I mean, there's always going to be some kind of imperfections to it, but that's also what makes the live experience so great as well, because it's never going to be exactly as it is in the record, and you are able to give it its own live rendition and give it its own feel as well.
I agree. And the thing about live that usually makes it so much better is the energy. There's this just unmistakable energy where you're just going, wow. And I think that's the case with Stryper many times, is we have much more energy live. And I wish sometimes that would translate over onto our albums. I think it's difficult to make that happen sometimes, because when you're playing, when the drummer comes in, like Robert is a real live, energetic drummer and spontaneous, and when he has to come in by his choosing, by everyone's choosing, I should say, and play to a click track, in perfect time. Sometimes that stifles the musician and can take away from the energy and the creativity. Like the old days, if you go back and listen to Yellow and Black Attack and Soldiers Under Command, those weren't track to click tracks, okay? And there's bad because of that, but there's a lot of good because of that. There's a certain level of energy on those albums that you get because Rob was just able to just cut loose and not worry about a click. But then we started tracking to a click on To Hell with the Devil, and he loves doing that. But I'm just trying to make a point that, the energy is so important for the quality of the album, more than I think people give it credit for.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with that either. I mean, when you're putting those songs in there, like I was talking about before, when it's making sure that it's music that you want to make, I mean, you got to make sure that energy's there, because if you're phoning in the energy that's going in there, you're going to be phoning it in live because your heart's not going to be behind it. But when you have your heart and soul and the fire of every song that's going into every song, it's just going to make the song stand out that much more.
And it does. And you can hear the songs that have that, and you can hear the songs that don't have that. Absolutely. And sometimes it's just not a matter of snapping your fingers and doing it. Sometimes it's just not going to happen. If you're, for example, if you're on a budget and a time constraint, and you've got to get, 12 drum tracks in 2 days, and by that second day at 11 o'clock at night, you still have 3 to go, and the drummers wore out. You know what I mean? It's like, how do you just snap your fingers and get that energy? Sometimes it's just not going to happen. So that's why, as a producer, I always try to allow enough time to not fall into those. I've lived and learned. I've done albums really quick, and I've done albums really slow. And neither way is good, So we got a system down now where I allow plenty of time for drums and bass and guitars, but yet not too much time, because then you'll over-perfect it and suck the life right out of it. Trying to retake that guitar solo 100 times instead of the third time was the one,
Yeah, and, it's just that happens so much with a band. I mean, again, like you said, it totally depends on the budget. It totally depends on the studio. It totally depends on the equipment. I mean, there's so many factors that go into it, but as long as the heart and soul and the dedication is in there, I mean, despite all the other efforts in there, I mean, as long as it comes out sounding like a good song, it's going to be a good song.
Absolutely. And the key is, as a producer too, is just encouraging everyone, but also knowing when to say no. I've worked with so many musicians where that mentality of, they nailed it the second or third time, or even sometimes the first time, and they're like, no, I can do it better. And it just doesn't ever get any better. And as a producer, there comes a time when you just have to say, no, dude, we got it. Hey, Dad, go back to the second take. Let me hear that again. And he plays it, and as the producer, you're going, that's the one. We're going with that. And then the musician's not too happy about that. It's a real fine line. You gotta kind of know when to say no and when to say yes as a producer, and to keep it moving and not fall into that trap of losing that energy and losing the beauty of that second take that wasn't perfected like the 100th take. So it's a real give and take, man. It's tough.
Oh, definitely. But again, I can say from the fan perspective, I can definitely say with the brand new album here with Unified, I mean, I definitely love the way that it came out. I mean, everything from the songwriting to the production work to everything that just goes into it. I mean, it just, that inspiration's there, and I love the reception that it's been going on so far. I mean, I've been seeing a lot of positive reception for the songs that's been released so far, and I think you guys absolutely deserve that, and it's so awesome to see that you guys are able to come back together for the next album, make some amazing material, and I can't wait to see what you guys do next.
I can't either, man. And the reception has been great, and I'm really excited and already looking forward to the next album. And I hope that we could, like I said, we could do many more. It'd be really cool if in 10 years or 12 years we've got 10 albums under our belt. That'd be pretty cool.
Oh, very much so.
You never know. It may happen. And I love working with George. I hope he loves working with me. I think he does. And at least that's what he's told me. And, I think there's a lot more to come, man. It's a lot of good times ahead.
Oh, awesome. Well, you mentioned a little bit ago that you're in the midst of writing for the new Stryper album. What should people expect from the next album?
Well, I think it's going to be in the same wheelhouse as the last two albums. You got Fallen, and you've got No More Hell to Pay. No More Hell to Pay was a little bit more produced. It had a little bit more of a poppy side, not much, with songs like Te Amo and but not much. Fallen was definitely a little darker and a little bit more like low-endy and raw and just, a little bit more snarl to it. This album's probably going to be more like that, it just kind of a follow-up to that. The stuff that I'm writing so far is just real, I don't want to say real dark, but darker, minor chords, and the lyrics are kind of taking shape in terms of talking about what we've experienced for the past few years, and how we've risen above and come out of it and things like that. It's a cool album, man. There's a couple songs that are just grooving, and I'm loving the riffs and guitar oriented follow-up to Fallen, and really going for that make it our best mentality. And I think we've got a really great shot of accomplishing that and releasing our best album ever, where people hear it go, how do these guys do this? How do they keep doing this? And that's the goal. It's always the goal.
Yeah, and that just makes me so excited for when everything does come together and I finally get to check out the new Stryper album. I mean, I love what you guys have been doing, especially lately. I mean, the fact that you guys are able to be together for so long and be able to write some of your finest material to date, the fact that you are so gung-ho and so happy about the way everything's progressing so far, that makes me very excited as a fan, and I can't wait to check it out.
Well, man, I really appreciate that. And it's because we're just excited about music. We love music. It's in us. It comes out of us. It's overflowing. And that well is still, it's not dried up. And, sometimes that happens, but it hasn't happened yet. Hopefully it's not going to happen anytime soon. We're going to keep doing it. We're excited about it. We can't wait to get in the studio. We can't wait to tour next year. And we're going to go do it, man.
Well, awesome. Well, Michael, thank you so much for taking this time to be able to talk to me about everything that's going on with Stryper, and of course, the brand new album from Sweet and Lynch, Unified, which is coming out November 10th through Frontiers Music. Like I said in the beginning, I just had about 24 hours to be able to listen to the album, but I got through it a few times now, and there's some parts that I'm still dissecting and parts that I'm really enjoying and catching on with the next listen, and it's one of those albums that I feel like I can can go back to every time and discover something new on it. And I really appreciate albums like that when it's full of that fresh creativity and inspiration behind it. And I'm so thankful for
it. Really is.
Band.
As I listen to it, I hear the same thing. There's things that kind of jump out at you that you never knew were there, and those are some of my favorite albums too, for sure.
Oh, well, awesome. Well, again, thank you very much for taking the time to do this. Before we wrap things up, is there anything else you'd like to mention that I hadn't brought up yet?
Well, I just wanted to say, not a lot of people know that I'm putting together a solo acoustic DVD, Live at the Narrows. That's going to be coming out this year, right after Thanksgiving, most likely. So not long after the Sweet Lynch album. And it's cool. It's just going to be available through michaelsweet.com. And I'm pumped about it, man. It's a lot of fun to hear the songs just stripped down. And then I'm going to be starting on a new solo album again next year, probably in February, maybe early March. I'm going to be recording that. So I'm excited about that. The Striper album comes out probably in April of next year, just after my start on a new solo album. So I'm trying to get everything in, man, before I can't do it anymore. Even though I hopefully have another 20 years left, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I'm so thankful that you did take the time to be able to do this, and you are taking the time to go out with all these musical endeavors and just trying to show off what you're capable of right now in all these different projects, whether it's Sweet and Lynch, whether it's solo, whether it's Striper, or in your production work. I mean, the fact that you are going out there and able to do all this work, I mean, it's very much appreciated from everyone in music.
Well, man, hey, I love it. I love what I do, and I love my fans. And I'm grateful to them and for their support for so long, continued support. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. And man, I just want to keep doing it. As long as I have health and inspiration, I can do it, man. And I'm going to keep on doing it.